Hi everyone, this is Annette with ASCardDesign, and I'm so glad you're here. Today I'll show you how to make this note card using items you might not typically think of when creating a card. So it wasn't until after I completed this entire video that I realized my audio wasn't working. So I'm doing a voiceover and I'll do my best to stay up to speed. But I am going to make this card using a 90-pound watercolor paper that is cold press, and we're going to use some collage medium from Distress. And we're going to use some products that just aren't conventional with making a card. But also, I do just ignore the bubble in the left because I was recording this and talking to you. Of course, like I said, I did not have audio, so here we are doing a voiceover. But I'm just showing you here the watercolor paper, and the reason why I'm using watercolor stock or cardstock is because we're going to be adding a lot of moisture to the cardstock, and regular cardstock might not hold up to it. So here I'm showing you the watercolor paper that I use. This is from Artist Loft, and I did get this at Michael's. This is something that I've just had for quite some time in my supplies, and I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to pull this out and use it today for the card. And I'm just showing you, it has a nice, at the back of the pad, it has this nice, almost like a chipboard where you could tape the paper down, and it won't warp or curl when you add moisture to it. So let's see. The next thing I'm going to be doing is just I'm just laughing at my bubble there. Uh, just putting this on a piece of construction paper because we're going to be adding a lot of different elements to this. And in a minute here, I'm going to be bringing out a book that I got at a craft, not a craft store, but like an antique store. And this is not an expensive book or a first edition by any means, but it just had some really cool antique looking pictures of old cars. And some of them looked like advertisements. And I thought that that was really cool. And I wanted to use it somehow in a card. And by the way, I'm making a birthday card for my brother, Mike. And I really think this would be a cool, just different kind of card. But I do love the images in this, but I did select this Packard page. I really loved the design, and it it does show on the left side Packard first model 1899, and then on the other side it had some other really cool elements. So we're going to be ripping those pages out, and I think I will show you that here in probably right about now. But we're going to rip them out and cut them up, tear them up, and get them on this cardstock or the watercolor paper. So when you do a project like this, you just want to be mindful of any words that might be showing, just obviously this is an appropriate text, but just do be mindful of that. And we're just going to tear the page, and I like to tear towards me. It just kind of gives me a little bit better control, but the edges don't need to be perfect, and some of the text can be cut off. It's okay. So don't worry if it's not perfect or if it's too jagged. You kind of want that. You want a very rustic look. So I'm good with that. I'm going to keep that, and then this page I'm going to cut it up into sections, and I am going to orient my card, I believe, landscape. I was kind of deciding, do I want it to be portrait or landscape, but a lot of it depends on the design of your image. This one is kind of already in landscape position, so, or orientation, so I am going to keep my watercolor paper in that orientation. So the next thing I do is I'm deciding where I want to uh, start taking this page apart. And I'm first starting with the edges because I just think that that's going to be easier. And I'm just kind of going along the black border, but eventually I do take some of that away. Um, but it's just a good starting point, and kind of as you're tearing, you already are starting to think of the design and how you're going to do it. So I went ahead and got rid of the edges a little bit, and then I knew right away I just wanted to chop off that car. I just loved the Packard. So that is going to be the next thing. And again, I'm kind of making sure I do want it to go landscape orientation. And here I'm pulling in some templates that I made, and I'm going to put all the supplies that I've used in the description and also the measurements for these templates. These are just pieces of cardstock that I cut up, and I use them as a template to help me figure out what size matte layer and what size panel layer that I want to use. So, for example, I just put them together, and if I want a narrow matte layer, then I have the size right there, what I need to cut my cardstock down to. If I want a wider margin for the matte layer, then I just play around, and then when I find a design I like, I have the measurement right there of what I need to cut my cardstock down to. So these are handy to have, and again, I'll put the measurements in the description so you have them if you want to do them. But I just it's just a quick, easy way to just kind of really know what size you want to cut your paper to. And in a minute here, I'm going to show you how I store them. I just keep them on my desktop because I do refer to them quite often. Sometimes it's not always easy to remember the 7/8 and all these different sizes. Um, but anyway, these are just nice to have. And I think I just rambled on and on and on about it. So, oh goodness. I tell you, I really was upset that I didn't have the audio, but it is what it is. And sometimes these things happen and you just have to adjust. So here is the container that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and it's just a 2-bin container. And I keep a lot of quarter sheet cardstock because that's how I usually begin my cards. I don't usually use watercolor paper, but I have a lot of 1/4 inch cardstock cut down, and I keep my templates right in there. And like I said, this is just off to the side on my desk. And there you go. All right, back to the card. So I keep turning this over. I want to make the card this way so badly, I think, but that is not how the card ended up. But this is the card panel size that I want. So right there is when I decide for sure it needs to go in um, landscape orientation because of the way the car is positioned. All right. I don't know if you heard that, but I'm getting a notification on my computer. This video is just a work in the making. So here I am pulling out some designer paper, pattern paper. This is from Bo Bunny, the Boulevard collection, and I'm just leafing through to find a design or a color palette that I want. I landed on this because it just is geometric. It has some circles and it's blue and kind of gray. And I know blue is my brother's favorite color. So I'm just going to pull this out and use this to cover up most of the watercolor. It's just going to be in the background. And when the card is all done, most of this is covered up, but it does give a little bit of stability to the card as well. Like I said, we are going to be adding a lot of moisture with some paste. And at that point, I lost some footage. Again, this has just been quite the video to create, but I lost some footage. So on we go. So I'm just gluing down the pattern paper with some Gina K Connect glue. And we'll get that down onto the watercolor paper. And I did have to cut the pattern paper off a little bit. I think I cut 1 inch off of it so it would fit. And pardon my head, my cap gets in the way several times in this video. So I do apologize for that. It's really hard to keep looking at the monitor when you're trying to craft, but I apologize. So, all right, so we have our designer paper down, and now I'm separating the car. So I'm just going to tear that off and decide where I want to be putting this onto the paper. I will be cutting this down, so I'm being mindful of that. I'm going to be cutting this down using, I believe I use Master Layouts 2, or I think I might just, no, I cut this down manually. So I'm just being mindful of that, the template of the card panel that I was using because I want to keep that shape or that size. So now I have to decide what elements. I want to use all of this because I love the border. I love it all, but I need to decide what pieces I can pick. And it does say it's from Warren, Ohio, and we grew up not far from there. So I do want to put that in there. So I'm going to cut that or tear that off. And then there were some other elements that I'll pick here in a minute, but I am going to have to tear this down quite a bit just to make it fit. But I do want to keep some of that border in because I love it. Like I said, I just love the detail. It looks very Art Deco, and I really like that. So that's going to go somewhere. And excuse my head, and my camera is focusing on my ball cap and not on the project, but it'll straighten out here in a second. And I'm just deciding where I want to put everything and then what else can I put on this card. So this also talks about the price of the car, which was $2,500 back in the day. And it seats 5 people, so that's on there too. So I'm just going to add those two elements to the card, and we'll just tear that in half so it all fits and just kind of layer it up. When you do mixed media cards or collage cards, you do overlap, and if you don't have to have every word exposed. Your brain will make up the difference. So if part of a word is covered up, your brain knows what that word says, and that's just the beauty of this. And that's why I love collages. You just keep layering. And so that is basically my design, and I'm going to bring in Distress Collage Medium in matte, and this is what I'm going to use to glue everything down. And that's also a Distress or a Ranger brush, and I like these. You can use a paintbrush that's got a wide bristles, but I like the Distress brushes. They're really good for the different um, mediums, just to lay them down nice and evenly. And there's my hat again. Okay, so again, I'm just making sure I know kind of where these pieces are going to go, and I just have some press and seal over my collage medium, and this just helps keep it fresh and keep it from drying out. It's kind of hard to see in the picture, but it's super fresh, just like the first day I opened it. So I'm just going to get some on the brush, and I'm just going to brush it on top of the designer pattern paper. And I'm just starting with a light coat, just a nice thin, even coat all over the paper. And we'll just get that down. And then we'll go ahead and take our pieces, but I'm here showing you, it just gives a nice little shine, but it will dry back matte. And then it's basically glue. You just want to put your pieces wherever you want them. I'm just going to lift it up a little bit to tuck that one corner in and get that right there in the corner, kind of on an angle. And then I'm just placing this again, overlapping, because that's kind of the beauty of a collage. You just want pieces to overlap each other. And I think I'm just going to add one more here. And I'm sorry about my cap again. I'm going to apologize all throughout this video. I promise that's going to be my mission, not to have my big old ball cap in the way when I wear a hat. And I'm just kind of fidgeting with these pieces just to make sure it's exactly where I want them. And then we're going back in with more collage medium, and we're going to go over everything. And it's kind of like if you've ever decoupaged. It's just going to put a nice layer of glue over top and seal everything down. And you just want to make sure everything has good coverage. And if any of you have ever done these types of cards, let me know. I'd love to hear your process. I'm not sure if I'm doing it accurately, to tell you the truth. I know that the collage medium works great as glue, and it dries back real nice. So this is just how I'm doing it. All right, so I have all that on, and you want to seal up everything right away. When you're using collage medium, get your jar sealed up so it'll stay fresh for a long time. And if you have access to a sink, you want to wash your brushes right away. I don't have access to a sink while I'm recording, so right on the floor next to me, I have a container of warm soapy water, and I put my brush in there, and I'm just going to wipe it off first, get most of it off, and then I'm going to drop the brush into the soapy water. All right, so there is the panel, nice and shiny, and I'm going to set it with my heat tool just to dry it a little, just to, give it a little bit of help drying. So I'm bringing in the Ranger Heated Craft Tool. I did lose some footage, so this is the end process, but it did dry it pretty much. It was a little bit tacky, but it was dry enough where I could proceed on. All right. So the next, I'm not sure what's coming up next. I think I'm just kind of deciding what I'm going to do here. I believe I bring in some stenciling. Let's see here. What am I doing here? I recorded this a while ago, so I'm just trying to, yes, I'm going to bring in the stenciling. Okay, so I have from the Tim Holtz collection, this is just a stencil, and I'm going to use grit paste and solar paste in Beluga. Now, my thought was I was going to put down some grit paste, mix the Beluga solar paste in with it, and it would give it some color and some sheen and shine. It didn't work out that way, but it still was a cool effect. I'm not sure the science behind this, but anyway, I'm putting down some grit paste on my glass mat, and then I'm going to be putting in the Beluga solar paste with it and mix it up. And the Beluga solar paste alone is just, I love Simon Hurley's solar paste and lunar paste and astro paste. I love these products, but evidently they don't mix with other grit pastes or things like that. So anyway, it was worth a try. So I'm just blending it up, not knowing it's not going to work. And here I'm just making sure it's mixed up really, really well. And then I'm going to use the part of the stencil up at the top that looks like ink splats or paint splats. And I will randomly put that on the card. And you can see I've lost a little bit of footage again. And anyway, going on, I'm got some of the paste on the right side. I'm just adding some up in the top left corner, and then I'm going to put some down in the bottom center. And I think that'll give a good balance. And again, I am cutting this down, so I'm not, some of this will be cut off, but that's okay. You just want to get your design. You can crop it however you want later. So just lay it all down first, crop later, cut later. All right, so I'm cleaning off my stencil and putting it in the soapy water. And again, you want to clean off any tools that you're using, put everything away, put the jars away. I'm wiping up the paste from my craft mat, my glass mat. This does dry quickly, and it dries like concrete. So I'm just going to spray some rubbing alcohol onto the glass mat and just get that all cleaned up. And then you'll be ready to move on. Getting everything put away. All right, so there we have what we have so far. So we have our collage medium down, we have our paper down, we have our our grit paste, and this did dry back just white. The Beluga solar paste did not show through, but that's okay. It still had the effect that I wanted. All right, so I'm just going to bring in the heated tool again and dry this. I wasn't quite sure if I was doing the right thing here. I didn't know if this was going to really mess with the collage or the collage medium. Anyway, I did it. I just did it lightly. I kept my tool kind of up high. It's hard to tell here, but it's a good 6-7 inches above the card or the paper. But it worked out in the end. Nothing crinkled or tore or warped. So I really was happy with that. That was one thing that went right with this video. And then, so I did go ahead and cut this down to the panel and mat sizes that I decided to use, according to those templates. So I'm just taking some Gina K Connect glue and gluing the panel down to the mat, and it'll have a nice thin black border all the way around. which I love. It really finishes off the front of the card. And I'll just get that down. And then I really like the way that looks. So the next thing I'm doing here is I am bringing in the card base. Um, this is just a top folding half sheet of cardstock, and I'm just going to meet the corners and crease the top. And I'll bring in my bone folder just to reinforce that top edge. And I am going to go ahead, and I think I do go ahead and glue the whole card front onto the card base here. So I'm just making sure everything's glued down and the way I want it before I commit. I'm deciding whether I want to glue or put foam tape, and I did opt with the foam tape. So I'm bringing in this big roll of craft foam tape that I picked up at Michael's. I've had it for quite some time. I don't use it enough. I need to because I really want to use it up, but it's a low loft tape, and I'm just gonna put a strip along one edge and cut it. And then I'll do this repeatedly over the back, but I believe I do cut that out of the video because my hat was in the way over most of it. So I did edit that out. And here I'm just making sure that it's all within the borders. So here I'm adding the Gina K Connect glue to the back of the tape because that tape is very sticky, and once it sticks, it's stuck. So if you don't have it positioned correctly, it's stuck, but the glue helps with that. And here I'm just taking some craft scissors that have a jagged edge, and I'm cutting some ribbon. And I thought this would add a nice texture element to the card. So just be sure to look at what you have in your stash. I mean, I have a whole box of ribbon and I rarely use, so I thought I'm going to use it today. So I thought that the best way to put this ribbon down is to use some double-sided tape. I've tried glue in the past, and glue seeps through, and you can see it kind of looks like a stain. So here I'm using double-sided tape, and I will say I struggled like mad to get the backing off of this. So my tip for you is just take your time, especially if you're using a cloth ribbon like this. I used a pick tool here, and I was just picking away, and literally this took me like 3 or 4 minutes. So I edited that out, and here is the end result. The backers are finally off, and now I'm just deciding where I want to put this onto the card. I was going to go with the bottom right corner, but then I just really gave the card a good look, and up at the top left, there was just some dead space, I thought. So that's where it landed, and I was pretty happy with that. All right, and now I have from Tim Holtz Field Notes ephemera. I love Tim Holtz ephemera. You get quite a bit in the pack, and his packaging shows you everything that you get. So when I get these, and I'm explaining this here in the video, when I get these, I lay them all out. I mean, there's tons of little pieces, but I lay them all out on the table, and then I take some time and just kind of group them into color palettes, like greens. I have reds. This one had some blues and I believe some lavenders, and I just put them in baggies. It's just easier because, like, and this card is very brown, and I wanted to bring in some color, so I chose reds. So I just went to that baggie and pulled out a couple things that I wanted to use. So they look like, one looks like a postage stamp, one looks like a ticket. And then I also have this cute little milk jug that I got at an antique store years ago, but in it I put different metal elements. There's little like badges or little medallions, I guess, and brads and little paper clips. So I did pull out one of the metal brads, which is right there, and one of the paper clips, and a piece of or paper clip, and on one of the metals. The metal says, what does that say? It says light the way, because my brother is a shining light in many people's lives, including mine. So I thought that is going on his birthday card. And so the next thing I'm trying to decide is how am I going to get, especially the metal medallion on. But first of all, I'm just putting this cute little metal paper clip. I'm just putting it onto the ticket just to give it a little interest. And then I'll just glue that whole thing down to the card. And the metal medallion here. Now the brad has metal prongs on the back that split, and I could have put it through the panel before I glued it down, but I didn't. So now I'm thinking I don't know if I can really glue this down that it would stay, because the metal medallion is a little bit heavy. So I decided to use some foam tape. So I'm going to be grabbing a little foam square, and um, I'm just laying the prongs on the back. I'm opening them up and laying them flat. And it just, it was just kind of off a little bit, not level, not flat because of that, the prongs in the black. So here I'm going to grab my foam squares, and I'm just going to put one on the back, and that will do it. And these backers are much easier to remove than the double-sided tape was. So off it goes, and I am just going to position it up in the top there. And I love the look of that. And then the rest is just placing the ticket and the postage stamp. That'll add the color. And here I'm just explaining again that, it's okay that part of the words are cut off, because your brain will make up the difference. It knows what that says. So here I have the last couple elements I want to put on before my greeting. And this I'm going to use the greeting from this pad. It's from Timholtz Ideology, and it's metallic sticker book. And this is just full of sentiments of all kinds. They have black with gold lettering, they have white with gold lettering, and then I don't believe I showed you, but there are little like circles and rectangles also that you can use as like a matte layer. But I'm just kind of going through here and looking to see what could be appropriate. There isn't really one that says happy birthday, but since this my card has a automobile, and birthdays every year is a journey, I did find one that says embrace your journey, and that is the one that I decided to go with. And now I'm just deciding where I want to place these final elements. And the stickers, or not the stickers, but the postage stamp and the ticket are nice and flat, so those can get glued down, as well as the sentiment strip. And apologize again for the out of focus on my hat, or because of my hat. And so I'm just gluing these down. And we're going to just add some color to the corner here. And this long, arduous video is almost coming to an end. This was a doozy. I had so many problems recording, audio, losing footage. But anyway, here we are at the end. That is my finished card. This is my brother's birthday card. Happy birthday, Mike. And I will be hand delivering it, because this one would be tough to mail because of the metal. But if you liked this video, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. I do a live video every Wednesday at 7 p.m. and Sundays I put a video up at 1 p.m. Those times are Eastern, and I would love to have you. So until next time, make it a great week. See ya.